why I moved to Latin America at 24 years old. This is going to be a story, and the story starts when I was in college, back in Kansas, and Corona hit. I was a senior, second half, everything was cut, everything was clipped, couldn't do anything, had to stay at home, then I graduated. Went out to the workforce. Corona was dying down a little bit, and I ended up getting a job with a corporation, and I was essentially a consultant. So I would travel around, I would fly to different cities for the company, get paid a stipend for food, get paid extra for travel expenses, right? So it was a good gig, and I got to travel around a little bit. I got to see the world, went to Washington, D.C., went to California. Actually, I got to see the basketball stadium at Auburn. So really cool stuff. It was an okay job. And at this point, I was out of college, but I knew there was something more. Literally, I could feel it in my bones. And the reason why is because my mom had planned an entire trip to go to Europe for my graduation present. Now, I mean, my family's not super well off, right? We're not like poor by any means. We're not super wealthy. We're middle class, right? So it's a trip that we had to save up for and put down the deposits. Everything was ready to go. Boom, Corona hit. And that really upset me because the trip was supposed to be 2 weeks long, and the time frame it was supposed to be in was going to be after I graduated, right before I started my job. I had 3 weeks in between. So that 2 week slot was the perfect slot. And I knew that I had to take that trip then, otherwise was never going to be able to take a 2 week trip ever again in my whole entire life, because that would be my whole year's worth of PTO for this company that I worked for and for any other company I worked for in the corporate world. So I was pretty upset, not even with the fact that I didn't get to go, but with the fact that my mom worked really, really hard, saved up, put all the logistics in place. I was going to go with my aunt. We were going to go visit family in Germany, Scotland, have all these adventures. And the whole thing was ruined because the whole entire world was just on lockdown. It was shut down, couldn't fly, trip was canceled, didn't get deposits back, and I was pretty upset. So I filled that void of 3 weeks before I started my work with who knows what. After I graduated, didn't really know what to do. I was in limbo. Then I started my job. Like I said, flew around everywhere. It was a good gig, but I knew there was more. So what I did is I started scrolling Twitter, and I got off of political Twitter, because that's all that I was exposed to, like just normie Twitter, entertainment and political. I got off of all of that, and I inserted my feed with everything about money. I knew there was more. I knew I had to have a side hustle. I knew I had to invest in the stock market. I knew I had to do everything. So essentially, I loaded up my Twitter feed with a million different things about money. Learning about money, how does money work, where does money move, and I tried starting side hustles. I tried a million different things. I tried drop shipping, failed. I tried making an info product, failed. I was still learning at the time. The first online dollar I made was through what's called affiliate marketing. So someone had their info product, their course, and I had a small following on Twitter. So I just posted an affiliate link for them, and someone bought the course. And when someone bought the course, I would get paid half of the commission for it. Like a $50 product, I would get paid $25 just for putting the link out there, someone seeing my link and someone buying because of that. And that's when I realized, I can make money online from the sky. This is crazy. And so I dove even deeper. I started my own e-com business. I started selling watches online. It was called Yefera. This is still wear the watches to this day because I can look down at my wrist and be like, I started that. Like I literally created that from ground zero. And it's cool just to look at the wrist and be like, I can do anything. I created my brand, got my LLC, ordered inventory, and I did all the things I thought I was supposed to do, but I didn't end up taking off like I expected. And the reason for that is because I had no idea what I was doing. And so I made a few sales, it was good, but I have all this inventory and I wasn't passionate about it, I was just trying it. Right? And so what I ended up doing is just keeping the inventory in my house, leaving that as a side hustle and trying to move on to the next thing. I was always naturally a good salesman. And I went to a wedding. One of my buddies said, hey, I have a friend out in California. He's selling solar. I said, selling solar, what does that mean? He's like, he's selling solar panels. Like, he's going and knocking on doors and he's selling solar panels to people. It's saving them money, saving them energy. I'll hook you up. So I hopped on a call with them. Long story short, within a week and a half, I told my mom that I was going and leaving to move to California. I told my job that I was quitting. I loaded everything in the back of my car and I drove all the way out to California. So this is my life now. Door-to-door salesman, knocking doors, pounding the pavement, and selling solar panels. So I was super excited because I had this newfound freedom. I didn't have to clock in. I didn't have a 9 to 5. I didn't have to go on team meetings and tell people what my fucking favorite color was. But what I didn't have was location freedom. I still had to be in California. I made a pretty good living. I knew I was going to be really good at it, and I was. And you know, I made solid money. That was the first solid money I made. I think the best month I had was maybe 20K in a month, 20 grand. That was coming in through various projects that got installed, and I was like, this is a whole new concept of money, because the rest of my life was just going to be paycheck every 2 weeks, a few grand here, a few grand there, and I just made 20K in a month. I had to work really fucking hard for it, but I did it. One thing I did not have was location freedom. I had the time freedom. I had the financial freedom. Well, I was building the financial freedom. I knew I would get there if I stayed, but I did not have location freedom. I went to a networking event in Miami, and it opened my eyes to the possibilities that we have as human beings to live our life globally, to take advantage of this internet sky money that's magically changing the numbers in our bank accounts. So New Year's Eve came up. So I was naturally thinking, what's my New Year's resolution? And when I thought about it, I was like, okay, I want location freedom. But I know I can make a lot of money doing the solar thing in California. So what do I value more? Do I value making a few hundred grand this next year in solar, which I know that I could probably do that? Or do I value setting up my life to be able to make internet sky money? I wouldn't make a few hundred grand yet, but I would be developing skills that would get me there. And when I genuinely asked myself that question, the latter weighed over the former. So that was it. I was like, I have to get out of here. I have to move. I have to find an online way to make money, because if I want to do that anyway, why postpone that? That's my goal. So I delved into the online space. I started accumulating knowledge of sales, remote sales specifically, appointment setting, talked to multiple different people in multiple different industries, and started bringing in income online. The first thing that I did is I flew directly to the person that I started working with first, who was in Canada. So that changed my mindset, because now I'm not in California. All the people that I've been working with for the past 6 months to a year are still in California. I'm going to go to Canada, of all places, Saskatoon. Where the fuck is that? It's in the cold tundra. It was in the middle of winter too. It's freezing. It was negative Fahrenheit for sure. And yeah, I went to Canada, trained up. I ended up going to Hawaii with a few other people. Some of you might know that story. Maybe I can tell it at a later date. And I was starting to bring in consistent online income, but I didn't have a place to be. I was just kind of moving around randomly. So I had some buddies in Guadalajara, Mexico, and so I was like, yeah, I'll come down, I'll live, we'll run it up, and we'll see what happens. I stayed down there for 6 months, and I immediately fell in love with Mexico. I was in the thick of it too. This is not tourist Mexico. This is not Cancun, Mexico. Like, I was in Mexico, and I had an absolute blast with the people I was around, with the life that I was living. It was incredible. I couldn't have even imagined this life like a year ago. I didn't even know that this life like existed outside of the grooming that I had to get good grades, go to college, have a good ACT score, you know, get a stable job, and it opened up opportunities that I didn't even know existed. So had a great time in Guadalajara, and I opened up another opportunity that allowed me to move to Playa del Carmen, which is in between Cancun and Tulum. It's like an hour apart on either side. Fell in love with that city as well. It's literally a beach city. You don't need a car. The beach is right there. Everything's on the Strip. Everything's on Fifth. If you're willing to walk a mile or two per day max, then you can get literally anything you want. It is a little bit more touristy. It's about half and half. There's people from, you know, different countries. Lots of Argentinian girls. Lots of, you know, Israelis. Lots of Canadians. You know, a little bit of a mixing pot. And I did like the authenticity of actual Mexico, but I fell in love. So that's what kicked off this whole journey in Latin America. Since then, I've been to Costa Rica, I've been to Colombia, I've been to Peru, and I don't have any plans on stopping my travels. I do want to try to find a city that I can post up in long term. So I don't know if that's going to be in Latin America. I call it my supercar city. Where am I going to buy my supercar? I think it might be in Europe, and I haven't explored that map of this video game yet. But that's the plan. Just keep building, keep exploring, keep grinding, keep curating the life that I want to live, keep finding out what works, what doesn't, keep networking with amazing people along the way, building connections, building foundations, building up my personal social profile, and portraying that. For me, it's via Instagram. And that gives people insight as to the kind of person I am, the kind of skills that I have, the abilities that I have, the value that I have to contribute. And yeah, I'm living an okay life. I have goals that I haven't hit yet, as does every man who really wants to accomplish everything in life. But I'm grinding, I'm getting there, and yeah, that's the story. So got a lot of plans in the future of where I'm gonna go, what I'm gonna do, but you just gotta take it one day at a time, one step at a time, see where life takes you. But I guess the moral of the story would be just get the fuck out of wherever you're doing and get out of your comfort zone, because I could have just stayed in that corporate job and said, no, this is safe. It's kind of the tail end of a pandemic, a global pandemic. So I should just stay here and have a good job in the city that I grew up in, my hometown. But I was like, no, screw that. I'm packing everything in my car. I'm moving to California and I'm building the life that I want to build. I didn't even know what that life was at the time, but that's what got me here, and I'm incredibly happy with the position that I'm in now. Like I said, have lots of goals that I haven't accomplished yet, but I'm on the way, and that's all that matters. The journey is the important part, not the destination. That's what I'm figuring out more and more every single day. It's tough to zoom out when we have this little piece of metal that we dig our faces into, but that's the story of why I decided to move to Latin America at 24 years old, pretty much freshly out of college, and how I got here today. So hope you enjoyed. I might tell a few stories that I've had along the way, so stay tuned if that interests you, and see you next time.